The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Yeah, Earnestly Speaking podcast. Let's get it. I'm a giant in New York, in Miami carry heat. So much more in store, my product can flood the street. Opinion Nation Godfather, CEO. Puff in the late 90s, gon' see me blow. Oh, got my hustle on, no imitation of bad. Army of untouchables, Opinion Nation staff. Never an off season, homie, check the numbers. Heart throbbing my own right, supplying southern comfort. Earnestly speaking, my ego is well fed. Earnestly speaking, you're too feeble and no threat. See, I'm like a hurricane, you're a mild breeze. Earnestly speaking, leaving Eli a dynasty.
Perfect podcast coming to you March 13th, 2024. Another guest lined up. Second time on the show, my man, social media commentator, Torrey M. Spears, here with us. What's going on, brother?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me back on. I appreciate it. It's good to see you again.
Yeah.
Congratulations on the pod. I'm looking forward to having a good rap with you tonight. About,
we had a great time last time.
I thought so.
You were on here last August, actually. We had a lot
right.
of talk about. We talked a lot about politics on that one, and I think then at the time, we're at the point of the cycle of the early debates. I think the first debate hadn't happened yet, but we're leading up to it.
We're getting ready for the debates. That's right.
It seems like years ago.
It does. It does.
We got to talk about. We'll talk about politics. We'll talk about wrestling. We'll talk about a little bit of football in the back end of the show. But the reason I'm watching here is I want to talk about politics because we are officially on the way. We're now officially. It's Trump, Biden, too. Both guys officially crossed the delegate threshold last night.
Correct.
So Trump, Biden, number 2.
Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah. First things first. Because you are not very you are conservative, but you are not a Trump fan, and you were very clear in the last podcast about that. And you had said on the show that you're not sure how if we were getting a Trump v. Biden rematch, which we are now do have, that you were uncertain of what direction to go in, and we're here. So let's discuss it. We're here now. What do you think about everything that's played out since the primaries?
Yeah. So I am. Well, first of all, again, thank you for having me back on the pod. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really disappointed in the direction of the country. I'm disappointed in the overall tone and tenor of politics in the country. I think we've really, in the last, I don't know, maybe 20 years or so, we've really devolved. Politics has become more theater, has become less about what's best for the country. We've really sacrificed, I think, a lot of conversation and debate and compromise. And we've really, really dug into red side, blue side. So it is a little disheartening. I don't mind the binary choice. I understand, the country's been founded, basically on a binary choice. So I understand that, but at the same time, we've really just sacrificed what I think is a good national debate and conversation about the best direction of the country. And we've turned it into, like I said before, it's not about who's right, but you're wrong and there's something wrong with you. And unfortunately, the figureheads of both parties now are really emblematic of what I think is a real lack of true discourse in this country. So I'm very concerned. I was concerned back in August. I'm even more concerned now. I think that a lot of really good politicians and really good public speakers and people who I think have a grasp on that 80% of the country that's really kind of in the middle, that really just want to have, the best life that they can have for their friends, their family, and their country. I think those voices are getting drowned out by the extremes, 10% on the left, 10% on the right.
I feel like we haven't had any debate, and I'm not talking about like on a local level. On a local level, we get more of that legislation talk. But in terms of the figureheads, in terms of the federal government, in terms of the presidential race, I don't think we've had actually a solid legislation debate on either side probably in 12 years. I think the last time I even saw something remotely close to like discussing policy,
right,
was Romney and Obama.
yeah.
I think ever since then, it's been about the personalities and about who can own this and who's this and who hates this and who's racist and all this stuff. And I'm not saying those things don't matter, but at the end of the day, I've always leaned in on, okay, which person leans on the policies I care about the most and keep moving. We have long past that point now. I mean, do we blame Trump? Probably so, but it feels like really both parties don't really do much. I mean, I would say Democrats, it's to some degree, but I feel like the game is now being thrown into the mud now to where you have no choice but to, go that route because of who the other person is on the other side for the last 3 cycles that represent the GOP. You got to play a little dirty, which I get it. Possibly been dirty, but even back when Bush and Dukakis and all these older, races back in the day, even if it was dirty, there was still policy debates, and I swear to you, I have not seen that in at least 3 cycles now. And
so and I agree to an extent. I will push back a little bit on that. I think that you mentioned about the GOP and the substantive policy debates. We've lost our way really on both sides, and my friends on the left who have really bastardized a lot of serious conversations about wealth redistribution and healthcare and immigration. I mean, there are serious problems in this country. And instead of discussing them in a rational, a compromising voice, a lot of things, like you said, devolve into racism and ageism and xenophobia. And a lot of that really, as a Republican, I can speak, really started during the Obama years. I mean, it's been bad on both sides for a while, obviously, but it really ramped up as the advent of social media started. And during that time, I think that a lot of argument, it really kind of like if you go back to the Iraq War, even, which was divisive on both ends.
The first one or the second? Oh, the second one.
The second one, right?
Okay.
So when you talk about the invasion of Iraq, and I mean, you can go all the way back to really even 2000 if you want to go way back, with the disputed election. Putting that all aside, I think you're right. There are substantive debates that need to happen in this country. There are serious problems. We have fiscal problems. We have problems with immigration. We have problems with borders and national security, at the entitlement programs, wealth redistribution, demonizing the rich. A lot of that comes from the left. And what I feel like is there are substantive debates that we can have. There are serious debates that we can have about all these issues, because we all agree that these are issues that this generation and the generations that come after us are going to have to deal with. The problem is, when you start to devolve the conversation into, well, you want stronger national border security, you must be racist against, a certain sect of
right, which is fucking true, because I'm also pro strong border security. Like I said, during the Trump years, it wasn't that I was against the wall. My issue with the wall is that I didn't think it was going to work.
Right, and that's a good conversation to have, but unfortunately, we can't ever get to that point, right? So the conversation,
like you're bad, and I'm not. I'm a child immigrant, so I can speak from that,
Sure.
But I don't think that issue, for example, I think we discussed in the last podcast too, also, that I don't think either party really cares to fix it, because I think they want to keep that as a campaign issue. So again, I think that's why it's almost like a false negative. Like, they bring it up, but do they really care about it? Not really, on either side. So
and like you said, so both sides definitely use these wedge issues to their advantage, and that's unfortunate, because you feel like as a citizen of the country, your representatives are not looking out for your best interest. They're looking out for their constituents' best interest and getting reelected, getting the party reelected, being in power. To the right, a lot of the concerns about conservative Americans, I guess, with the Republican Party, is the fact that when they do get power, there's no substantive changes. A lot of times, the left, when they get into office, when they get legislative power and executive power, they make a lot of moves. Some are popular, some are not popular. We can debate those all day long.
Of course,
but at least they do things, right? So when the Republicans and the right tends to get elected to power, the people say, okay, well, you guys, fix some of these things. they don't end up getting fixed. We end up kicking the can down the road, and they use that leverage to try to get reelected. So that's a little frustrating as a conservative American. So, it's only going to get worse. Circling back to what we started talking about, I'm really, really concerned about the direction of the nation, just in the fact that, going through the primary as a Republican was extraordinarily challenging. Not being a MAGA Republican, but just being a conservative.
Right.
The division in the Republican Party is pretty fierce. I don't know if it's going to translate into the ballot box, especially with as bad a president as Biden has been. But it's going to be very, very interesting. I think if there's ever going to be one of those elections where either a third party or the people who don't vote, I think this could be the one.
Let me ask you a question. As a conservative who actually, I follow your work obviously on social media and whatnot. I really do appreciate your candor.
Thank you.
What are the issues for you that matter to you? Because again, I'm a policy wonk at the end of the day. I don't give a crap about personalities. Vote your policy, keep moving. What are the things as a conservative that matter to you? When you go to the ballot box, you say, okay, these are things I care about more than anything else. And what are the things you care about?
Sure. Well, I appreciate you asking. In the macro, the government that governs least governs best. I feel like we have a incredibly intrusive national government when it comes to things like finances, when it comes to things like social conversations. We have the largest government that tries to do a one-size-fits-all when it comes to policy. And I don't think that that's healthy for the nation. I think that we are 330 million different ideas, and the community, I think, needs to be empowered. State and local government needs to be empowered, like you talked about before. I think we do best when we work together to solve issues. What works here in Florida may not work in New York, and it may not work in California, which won't work in Arkansas. So I think that we should be allowed to be left to our own devices in a majority of things. Now, of course, there's a role in the federal government, of course, protecting our borders and defending freedom and, strong national defense. I mean, it's outlined in the Constitution, but I do believe that we do best when we are left to our own devices as far as in the individual in the community. And that means some people are going to succeed, some people are going to fail, but you have the right and the freedom to fail. You have the right and the freedom to pick yourself up and be a success, and you shouldn't be punished if you're successful. So I think that for me, it's the national conglomerate, big government ideology that really, I think, is anti-democratic and frankly anti-American. So when I decided to come up with, what political ideology I was going to follow, it really broke down to something that simple. And a lot of the arguments that are had on both the left and the right tend to fall into one of those two categories, right? Are you going to be left to your own devices to deal with your issues, or are you going to depend on the government to do it for you? I'm of the ilk that, I want to live my life the best way that I know how for my friends, my family, my community. And I don't need the federal government dictating my life from cradle to grave.
No, I'm with you on that. No. I love the answer. Because I have similar thoughts there too. Also, I do think also too that the idea of state rights, I guess bastardizes kind of sucks. I think, as you said, and I agree with you, every state has different priorities, different issues. Now, are there issues that I believe should be taken up to the federal government and it should be a federal thing? Yes, I think there's argument about line issues that the federal government should have oversight on, as opposed to, but it is what it is, and I do agree that state rights, there's a reason why there's proper place of things. I mean, it was in Constitution. I agree with that.
Right. Federalism is a great thing, and now in this day and age, especially, mobility is so. It's much easier. I won't say it's so easy because that's not fair, but it is easier. Mobility is a lot easier. So
you have choices. That's the thing about this country. You have choices too. Like a state, you can go to another state and go to another state.
Exactly my point. So that's all the more reason why, putting trust in your state government and your governors and your state legislators to govern what's best for you I think is where we do the best for the citizen. Of course, there is a role in the federal government, and I think that that's fine. To what extent that is, I think, is a substantive debate that we can have as a citizen, but we don't have that debate anymore. Again, the debate devolves into name calling, and it's just really unfortunate because I think we're losing sight of what I believe to be the greatest social experiment in the history of all mankind, the United States of America. And we are sacrificing that for this, back and forth tit and tat, not only, red and blue, but within each party. We've become cults of personality, and I think we've lost our way on what makes it great.
What does the Republican Party stand for now? Like as a whole? I mean, Trump aside, is that lost now? I mean, again, we don't hear about policy anymore. We hear the classic, small government, about small government and this and that. What about, a lot of it too also with people who are on the far right, are definitely more, pro-lifers and all that. And I get all that. But policy perspective, what exactly do Republicans stand for now? Because I feel like that's the one thing that's why I've lost faith in the GOP.
Sure.
When I left to wait. Is that
Sure.
I don't hear any more substantial debate. And not only that, the country is, quite frankly, still moving more center to even more left on policy things also too. And I agree too. Also, a lot of the GOP, like a lot of the MAGA folks, aren't necessarily all conservatives either. A lot of those are all disgruntled Democratic voters who felt embedded by the elites of the Democratic Party. So again, hybrid parties in a sense too also. So what does the Republican Party stand for these days?
That's a great question, and it's really the defining question of the GOP's life is right now, because there is, Joe Biden likes to say this is a battle for the soul of the democracy of the country. Okay, fine, but really within the party, I feel like, and I can't pretend to speak for the entire GOP, the platform. Is
but
kind
you're
of all over the place.
You're allowed to have your play. But you're a member of the party, so you're able to translate your point of view.
Right, as the card-carrying member, I guess, as you would say. I like to believe we are still the party of small, limited government. We are the party of freedom. We are the party of choice. We are the party of fiscal sanity. We are the party of a strong national defense and a strong border, low taxes. You're better off handling your money than having the federal government do it. I believe that within my heart that the foundation of America is the freedom of the individual. That is where we are the strongest. And I like to believe that the party represents that. You have basically two choices. Do you want to be in control of your life, your life's decisions? Do you want the freedom to grow and expand and be successful? Or do you want to have somebody dictating to you the parameters of how you live your life? We can get into the micro with some of the social issues. I think that there's a shift in the party regarding a lot of social issues. I will say I do believe we are pro-family. I do believe that definition is evolving, and I think that that's okay, and it's okay to have that discussion. But I do believe it. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
When you say shift, are you saying this with a little more tinge progressiveness?
I wouldn't call it progressiveness. I would say
to certain things, right? In other words,
I think an evolution is a good definition, because I think from what I understand from the people that I have dialogue with, on a daily basis, I think there's an understanding and there's a shift that, listen, we can agree that there are certain red lines that most conservative Republicans have, vis-a-vis women's healthcare rights, abortion, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think that a pro-life stance, there's nothing to be ashamed about. We will always err on the side of the unborn. We'll always err on the side of those who don't have a say. I don't think that's ever going to change. Having said that, are there debates and discussions we can have on, certain parameters of women's protections? Is there? Yes. And we can have that conversation. And I think that people are on our side are ready to have that conversation, and we're ready to at least find some common ground, because I do believe there is some common ground there that we can at least coexist.
Well, there's definitely
and continue the debate, education. And, when you talk about pro-choice, yes, adoption is a pro-choice. Abstinence is a choice. There are choices that don't just have to be the termination of a pregnancy. But we don't have those discussions. I think we talked about that last time. The debate and discussion devolves into name calling. And that's where I think both sides retreat to their corners, and neither one want to listen to each other.
Yeah, I think the pro-life part, especially is demonized by the fact that if you're pro-life, then basically it's all the wackos in the evangelical. Like you don't care about anything else. And then of course people who think the other side does, like, kill babies at 9 months at birth. And I think I think the abortion argument is so underrated, man. It really is, because most of the country is on the same side, really, for the most part, close to the same side on it. Like me, I was raised pro-life, actually. I was raised pro-life, and I evolved. Look, I'm still not necessarily pro-abortion. I still don't. I have 2 children. That was never an option for me. I was. If my wife got pregnant, we're gonna have kids. But I do see the evolution of, like, we have to be a little more realistic. There are certain situations, rape, incest, the whole nine. I hate talking about it, but it is a reality.
It is
that we do need some flexibility on that issue.
And I think for both sides, and I think that's the frustrating part, especially when, I know we don't have to turn this into a debate about
that's okay.
But I think for me, I can say as a right center conservative libertarian,
right?
So, like, I'm willing to have a debate and a discussion, and I'm willing to say I understand that there are certain circumstances and situations that are unthinkable. And tough decisions have to be made. And I think that, I'm not of the ilk where it's like, we're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, pun intended. But the problem is, when you try to compromise, or when you try to meet somebody, not even halfway, but if you just say, hey, listen, okay, you feel this way about having the right. I understand that. I feel this way about protecting the unborn. There is a window there that you and I can agree that, hey, if X, Y, and Z or certain parameters are in place, I will concede, this might be an option for you. If you will concede that, hey, listen, at the 3rd trimester, at the partial birth, if you can't tell me that, a partial birth abortion is an abhorrent practice, if you're not willing to say, hey, listen, that yes, there are extremes where we are taking a life, and let's just acknowledge that.
Quite frankly, most Republicans who are on that are actually more right of me, more left than me. I'm actually, I was always on the 12 weeks point. Like, there's Republicans who are actually even more progressive than
like 16 weeks. Is that right?
I'm on a 12-week party. so 12 weeks. Like, most women know they're pregnant by 8 weeks. At some point, you have to know, okay, when it was that month or so, we having this thing or not? Look, I'm not saying to get into this, but at some point we have to be responsible to human beings as well. Can't just be guards off at 32 weeks or 34 weeks. I'm not saying it happens, but we can't do that either.
And so what happens is it devolves into, you hate women, you hate, and that's not productive. That's not a productive conversation. And I do think with my history to also, raised in the church and all this stuff, and people I have conversations with to this day, even at 43 years old, I still think with all my heart that most people who are pro-life are very well-intentioned human beings. They mean well. Even if they don't see the broader picture, I do think they mean well. Saving a life should be praised, right? Always, But again, we miss the boat when we start having this either or discussion. That's where it gets a little convoluted. I like that, right? I agree. So two things can be right at the same time.
Absolutely, and I think we need more. Yeah.
That's the thing. So going back to what you were saying, though, I'm sorry to get off on the tangent. So the party, if to hear the Trump wing of the party, they say it is Donald Trump's party, and you could make the argument that with the results of the primaries and all of the oxygen in the room being taken by Trump, you can make that argument. The GOP is the MAGA party. What does that mean? Honestly, I don't really know. I like to think that it's the conservative movement, but a lot of times, unfortunately, for the Trump and the MAGA people, it becomes all about Trump. And I think that I would be more comfortable if there was some humility and hubris and talking about ways to make our country better for everyone, rather than just talking about one person.
And I feel like Trump missed an opportunity. I said this years ago too. Trump missed an opportunity years ago to really be a real transformative president, because he had the ears of so many people on either side, whether you love him or hate him, that he could have been a president that could have been a real true moderate in a lot of ways. And because of the personality stuff, and quite frankly, the problem with Trump is that he doesn't know what he's doing. In other words, he doesn't have a position. This is the same guy that literally on 60 Minutes, when he was elected president in 2016, before he got inaugurated, said, Australia, greatest healthcare all time, greatest healthcare. Dude, the universal healthcare. Your party is dreaming against that. So what are you talking about? That's what I'm saying. Shit like that. He goes with the wind blows. And that's not consistent. I'd rather you have principles and stick to your principles as opposed to just saying what we want to hear.
I would appreciate if he stuck to his wheelhouse. I think, and the kicker is, if you look, the Trump years by every objective metrics were great years. Those 4 years were, short of COVID and how we handled that, but we were doing pretty well from a policy and from a growth standpoint. Things were really well. he didn't get the credit that he deserved to that end, but at the same time, there was so much. Exactly, there was so much, and you had the left that made it their entire campaign, and you had the media to make their entire campaign to derail his presidency. Which I understand, but the level of Trump derangement syndrome that took over the country with the media and celebrities, and it got ridiculous. So
yeah,
so instead of just letting, we could have had a chance to just let the sleeping dog lie, right? We could have just all moved on. You had an opportunity with the primaries coming up and all the indictments and all that nonsense, but they continued on the left and the press and Hollywood and just continually work this guy over, that they martyred him.
I was just going to say that.
You've got 35-40% who, no matter what happens.
I said this by year 3 of his administration. It was 2019. Said this. I remember saying the podcast that be very careful here. You might end up martyring this dude, because there was a demarcation somewhere around that time when you watch the poll ratings that it stopped falling. It was still low, but it stopped falling, which means people started tuning out all the bullshit, because it started like, even if you disagree with what everything's doing and all that, and I did. You have to be very careful with the optics here, and it's easy to martyr somebody and then make him some of a sympathetic figure. I still believe with all my heart, if COVID did not happen, he wins re-election.
I believe that as well.
That's simple.
I believe that as well. He would have been reelected, probably in a landslide. So,
I don't know about a landslide. I don't know about a landslide though, because the GOP has not won a landslide in a long time.
I understand that, but if the Democrats would have nominated Joe Biden in a non-COVID year with his presentation and his mental faculties, and they would have had to actually run a campaign and not just do the basement thing and the COVID thing.
Fair point.
I think that he would have lost. I'm almost confident.
Definitely agree he would have lost.
The election was close enough as it was. We're talking 20,000-30,000 votes. You could swing that, not even getting to the election integrity argument, which I think is tired, but even if you just look at the, listen, in a traditional election in 2020, Biden loses probably, by the end of the night. It would have been over pretty quick.
No, I agree with you. I agree he would have lost the election. I don't know if landslide to me is like, I'm looking at like, okay, could you win?
Not Reagan-esque, but we're talking. It would have been, the night would have been early. I think it would have been early.
Yeah. Nikki Haley, does she endorse Trump? Yes or no?
No.
Really?
No, I don't think she will. I don't think she's going to have to. I think that I think that her voice and place in the Republican Party, I think, is such that she's going to fall. I don't want to say fall to the wayside, but I think that there's going to be enough platitudes and gratitudes thrown at Trump, and this is Trump's party stuff. I don't think that it's going to really matter. I think that she did what she set out to do. She was the last one in to challenge him. She's made a voice. She's and I was a big fan of hers. I wasn't 100% fan of a lot of her positions and the way that she presented them, but I thought she did a really good job. And I'm sorry that she didn't catch on. Of course, I was a DeSantis guy, so I still plan on voting for him on the primary just because it's not going to matter at this point. So
right, exactly.
I think that the drawback and the benefit to having a Donald Trump as the head of your party is that he sucks all the oxygen out of the room.
Oh God.
So whatever Nikki Haley says or doesn't say, I think at this point is going to be irrelevant. I think that in a month or two, we're going to be into the general. It's going to all be about Trump. It's going to all be about Biden. All of this, the also rans are just going to fall into the ether.
In a country of 400 million people, this is what we come up with.
It's pretty amazing.
I don't understand. I don't get it.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. Like, but I go back and forth because you think, okay, the what you will put yourself and your family and your friends through to run for public office now. It's again, like we said at the outset of the pod, it's not about issues anymore.
No,
we're not having debates about substantive plans and ideas and compromise, and we don't have those conversations anymore. EJ, you run. I'm going to talk about your family. I'm going to talk about your past. I'm going to talk about something that you tweeted 8 years ago, and all of a sudden you hate America because you liked a tweet, that somebody else posted who was when you step back and you look at it and you go, this is insane. What are we doing? How many good, faithful, honest statesmen and stateswomen are out there who want to make a difference, who have great ideas, who have innovative and unique ideas, who will just never put themselves through that kind of scrutiny with the media and social media and having to apologize for something you may have written, a decade and a half ago. And it's just, who wants to do that? So this is what you get. You get, octogenarians who, are name brands who, have nothing to lose, frankly.
Do you think we'll get back to that point where we can have like substantial debates on actual legislation? It's been a little while, but do you think we'll ever get there?
2 years ago, 4 years ago, I would have said yes. Today, I don't know. It's going to take something monumental. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I'd like to think so because I do think, and it just depends on the social circles that you follow. I mean, obviously, if you watch the news on both sides, the right leaning and left leaning, you don't get a true sense of what I think a lot of Americans are really talking about and what a lot of Americans are concerned about. So the hunger and the thirst for that conversation and that debate, I believe, is there. I believe that there are a lot of people willing to compromise. I believe that there are a lot of people that are at least willing to hear each other's thoughts and have a conversation, have a serious conversation, and not just name call and demagogue. But unfortunately, because right now we live in this circus atmosphere where, politics is just all about perception and it's all about clicks and name brand. And it's going to take something seismic to get us back to a point where we can sit down, like you and I are doing and say, hey, you and I don't agree on this, but that's okay. I respect your position. You respect mine. Let's see if we can't find some common ground and work together.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with my neighbors today, actually. Two other black men. One's Republican. One's probably like me, a little more left, a little center left, when you want to call. And we all having a discussion about stuff like this. And, it, like what we care about, like we talk about race all the time. I think we have less of a race issue in this country and more of a class issue in this country.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think the issue of, I'm not saying racism does not exist. That's not.
Of course,
here. We do have that. You're never. And let me be clear, folks. We're never going to stop that. People are going to be racist because we do what they want to do. What country choices? If you choose to be racist, that's on the person. We can choose to dissociate the person. But racism would never be fixed in this country to some degree. There always will be a racist person in this country. I think the large issue in this country we have right now, and this is the conversation I'm having with people on either side of the aisle, is class warfare. Mm-hmm. That's where the middle class is getting killed every year. Mm-hmm. And again, that's not partisan. And no one wants to address that.
Right. So the fundamental question is, how do you have basically two schools of thought, right? You
Yeah,
have
yeah,
the school of thought that says, listen, the power should be in the individual. We should
right,
entitle people to afford them as much opportunity as they can to be successful on their own, and give them the tools and the education and the things that they need to be a success, and with the risk that it may not work out, but you know what, you have the ability to try. Or do you have the thought that says, we just need to have the federal government dictate what you want and how you live your life, and have them take care of your needs, have them take care of your health care, have them take care of your education, have them take care of it. And frankly, that's not something that I'm comfortable with.
right, right. This weekend I saw there was a UFC fight event. I can't remember what number it is, but Trump was there, and yeah, Nick Bosa of the Niners, and Joe Burrow, because of the Bengals there, greeting Trump. And the Joe Burrow part, the Bosa part, Bosa greeting Trump, not surprised. Bosa has been a admitted MAGA guy for years, very, very open about that on the social media. No big deal. But a lot of people push back on Joe Burrow on him shaking hands with Trump. And I was annoyed by this. Like, okay, he shook hands with the president. So what? It's a big deal. I mean, am I wrong for thinking like this? That's not a big, even if it's Donald Trump, this is still a former president of the United States. It's still a big deal. I don't understand that. How's this logic? I don't understand that.
This, again, like you said, this goes back to where we are as a society. We are so divided, and it's so vitriolic that you're right. Like, you can't be seen with somebody who disagrees with you politically, and all of a sudden you're a traitor to the cause. And I mean, like you said, what are we doing? I mean, he is the former president. I will shake hands with Barack Obama. I loathed him as a president, but if I ever met him, I'm not going to disrespect the man or disrespect the office.
Right.
Why, again, the civility is where I think we have really let ourselves down. The recognition that, hey, you know what? Donald Trump, it might be the devil to some people, but he was the duly elected president, right?
Right.
If Joe Burrow, who was a prominent sports figure and celebrity, wants to shake hands with a former president, doesn't mean he endorses everything that he says. It doesn't mean he even likes him. It's an acknowledgement of two people at an event who shake hands and who greet each other.
It reminded me of the time. You probably remember this a couple of years back when the Warriors won a title with Kevin Durant in 2017. There was an argument about whether or not the Warriors were going to go to the White House, and Durant said he didn't want to go because Trump was the president. I'm like, and I was critical of Durant about that at the time. I said, why wouldn't you still go to the president, even if he probably wouldn't take any advice you give him anyway? You still take that opportunity to plant a seed. Okay,
absolutely.
I never understood that kind of logic. Hey, look, I'm sorry, I'm Kevin Durant. I want a title. I'm going. Don't care who the president is. Right. So to me, it's just silly. It's just really, really silly.
It is silly, but it's a reflection of where we are who wants to deal with that, right? Who wants to deal with that headache? You don't want to have to deal with all of your followers, and now you got prominent sports media figures calling you out. And I know we'll talk about another player who was garnered some attention all of a sudden now. It's just we're getting close to critical mass where we're just like, are we just a theater of a country? Who are we anymore?
So we just can't exist without people being butthurt. That's why I love Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley says what he says and keeps it moving.
Yeah.
But white people can't do that. I don't understand that. And I'm assuming the player was Aaron Rodgers, right?
Aaron Rodgers, our next vice president.
Yes, allegedly. Supposedly he's on the short list to be RFK Jr.'s running mate.
Mm-hmm.
Torrey, what's your thoughts on this?
Hey, listen, he is an American citizen first and foremost. He meets all the requirements. If RFK Jr. Vets him and feels that he is a contributor to the campaign, then what is the problem? Right? I mean, and I heard a lot of social media and sports figures and guys who I really respect and admire. I heard a lot of their takes today, and they are, really apoplectic about the thought of this. And then there was an article about Aaron Rodgers sharing Sandy Hook conspiracy theories, and I don't even know if there's a tape on that. It's just somebody saying that he heard. What are we doing? Like, what are we doing? If RFK Jr. thinks that he can be a viable vice president, can't put him on there. Let's hear Aaron Rodgers debate on, or his thoughts on, tax reform, on entitlement reform. Does he have thoughts on what we do about Social Security? Does he have thoughts about what we do on the border? Does he have thoughts on, the conversation about women's health care in this country? When do we get to a point where we want to stifle more conversation instead of having more conversation? It's not my choice. It's RFK Jr.'s choice. I welcome it. I mean, I don't have a problem with that.
The funny thing is that he's got a lot of flack from the left, and like it's funny because like if you knew Aaron Rodgers through the years and his stance on things, he's pretty left leaning. He's very liberal.
Absolutely
very liberal.
Absolutely,
defiantly liberal, in fact.
But he gets flack for the whole COVID thing, which I don't pretend to know all of his thoughts and theories. I mean, I know he did the whole thing about being immunized and stuff like that. And I know he took a victory lap because of all of the data that's come out post-COVID. But again, let the man have the debate. Let him have it. He has a platform. Let him have his platform. If he says something that, flies in the face of science or reason or, is unpopular with the people, then let's let the people decide that, hey, he's a wackadoo. I can't have him as vice president. We've gotten to this place, and I don't know, in the last decade or so, where the more freedom of speech platforms we have, vis-a-vis social media and the explosion of cable television and stuff like that, and radio and stuff, like the more outfits there are for people to express their opinion, the more afraid we are of hearing those opinions. I think that's fascinating. Like, I don't know what happened. What is the harm in listening to somebody? If they spout their nonsense, let them spout their nonsense.
And then you go based on information. Why? So I always tell people too, and it is very controversial. I'm going to say this. I want my racism in the open. That way I know who you. That way I know who you are.
I was going to say the exact same thing. I was just getting ready to say the exact same thing. Is you can as a person of color in this country.
Yeah.
We need to. If somebody has a racist ideology, I need to know.
Right. Don't hide.
I need to hear them. You can't stifling their thoughts and their conversations and trying to devoid it from the public square does no good to anybody.
Yeah, even as a center-left person, I am very much a free speech absolutist. Very much so.
Yeah.
It's not free speech unless they agree with me.
How else are we going to know?
Exactly.
That's a conversation, and those are uncomfortable conversations. I understand that, but somehow, somewhere along the way, we've gotten scared of uncomfortable conversations.
Uncomfortable is healthy.
I'm all for more. So, listen, I wouldn't vote for RFK Jr. I wouldn't vote for Aaron Rodgers. I wouldn't vote for Jesse. I shouldn't say I won't. There's a very, very good chance that they probably would not earn my vote. But if that's the avenue that he decides to, I'll take a listen. I want to hear what he has to say. Yeah. I want to hear, and he may have something that I agree with. He may be spot on in some things. He may be way off on some things. But we need more conversation in this country. We need more debate. We need more voices, diverse voices. We need to stop being scared of having these conversations and letting the people decide what is and what isn't right for where they want the direction of the country to go.
Which is why I was pissed off that the Democrats didn't let the other primary candidates have a seat at the table to talk. Mary Williamson, Dean Phillips, and all these guys. Biden plus probably still win that. It doesn't matter. I want to hear the voices. Of course, I'm on Democrats. I can't speak on the direction of the actual party, but I like to see people have voices. This is why I hate the two-party system, because you feel stifled to one or the other.
Sure. And that's really the ironic thing when you think about it. Like you said, so the Democrats have always touted themselves as the party of diversity and the party of freedom of expression and things like that. And yet, when it comes to politics, it seems like they do the most stifling of voices of dissent.
I am very critical of the process for years. I've been very critical of the process.
It's baffling to me that they get away with that, and they just seem to continue to do that. I mean, with what they did, like you said, with this primary and what they did with Biden, and no debates and no, okay.
That's what I'm doing.
That's what you're going to do. Then
I'll be honest with you. The GOP's primary sub is a lot more fair than the Democrats.
They do a much better job. I think there's still some issues that they need to run. But again, it's like you said. So the binary system, I think, it's starting to really falter. I know that we have a stranglehold in politics in this country when it comes to media and money and stuff. I mean, it's basically a two-tiered system.
Right.
But I think that there is a groundswell of voices amongst the people who are really thirsty and hungry for change. And I think that if ever there was a time where we're going to see that reflected, it's going to be in this coming November election.
Yeah. Speaking of November, we are still about 7 months-ish out. The polls suggest Trump is slight lead in pretty much every battleground state. Who do you think wins right now?
My money is on Joe Biden. If I'm not a betting man,
right.
But if I were to bet, it's on Joe Biden.
Right.
I find it ironic that for the last 4 years, my side of the aisle has railed against polls, the misleading polls. Polls can get you whatever you want to say, blah blah blah. And now that Trump is ahead, everybody, well, the poll says this, the poll says that. I'm like, well, wait a minute now. I mean, just a while ago we were talking about how polling in this country is not an exact science anymore. So why does it matter now? I think that Donald Trump's problems are going to be amplified in ways that I don't think are reflected in the national discussion and discourse. He has a real deficiency when it comes to the right. And I say that by conservative Americas. Yeah. So like I was saying earlier, so there's a real fissure in the Republican Party with MAGA Republicans versus, I guess, traditional conservative Republicans. And I think that it is enough that, we're talking about not necessarily splitting, but I think you're going to find a lot of conservative Republicans who are going to vote down ballot, to preserve Congress. We obviously, we'd love to win the Senate back. We'd like to have the House. If you control the purse strings, then I think that goes a long way for the direction of the country. Mm-hmm. But I think that there are a lot of people, and you have the Trump people who are consistently out there telling Republicans, hey, we don't need your vote. We don't need your vote here. We don't need your vote there. They consistently attack other Republicans, and
they clearly don't read a history book, do they? They don't. There
is an anger, even when like when Nikki Haley dropped out, there was conversations about uniting the party, and I think that for the most part, we'd like to do that, but there has to be some sort of concession and some sort of recognition of the moment that I think is lost right now. It's just this is Trump. We have to get Trump back in because he's. Mm-hmm. He's the only one that can say, okay, that's not true. Conservative principles and ideologies transcend any politician. They transcend any public figure. These are tested and tantamount positions that, we believe are the betterment for the country. And we need, center and center left and traditionalists and people who are hurting in this country to listen to the message and say, we have a better way, not just for now, but for the future, for your kids and your grandkids. And we are looking generations down the road on how to protect and preserve this country and make it better for everyone. And unfortunately, that message is getting swallowed up by, this is Donald Trump's America. This is Donald Trump's party. This is the party of Trump. This is Trump, Trump, Trump. And we pay his legal bills and he has to get revenge and fight like hell. And all of those things were great when it was, 2020, what was it, 2016, I guess it was, when it was, when his flag, I tell you, when he convinced me when he said, what do you have to lose? That was a great argument. A political outsider, what do you have to lose? I have ideas. I have things that I know that can make this better. We've tried this with Hillary. We've tried this with the Bushes. We've tried this with us. What do you have to lose? That was a great message. And that was enough for me to go, hey, you know what? I've seen the status quo. I know how that's going to work. I'll give this guy a shot. And he hit lightning in a bottle and it worked. And then it became about him. And then it became about the movement. And it became something more heliocentric around Donald Trump and not so much about the betterment of the country that I think a lot of conservatives really get turned off on. So, one thing, and we've talked about this before, one thing Democrats do well is they rally. They will disagree in primaries.
He makes it easy. He makes it easy to do that.
The Bernie people, the Biden people, the far left and the center left, and those, they have an understanding of, listen, perfect is not the enemy of good. We don't agree with Joe Biden on a lot of things. We don't, we may not necessarily like him or whatever, but, the alternative is, whatever they paint Republicans to be. Republicans, I believe, tend to be more individualistic. So we stand true for what we believe in. And if he can't find a way to marry the conservative movement and the betterment of the country with his MAGA agenda, whatever that is defined at these days, I think he may be in for a surprise in November.
You say that, and I respect what you said there, but this issue in Israel couldn't really, to lack of a better word, really fuck Biden bad in ways they didn't imagine. Not because those voters will go to Trump, but one of the things you've seen through the years is that one of the ways for Republicans to win elections is to, is low turnout on one side.
Mm-hmm.
You saw in 2016 with Hillary Clinton. She was not popular in the party itself.
Mm-hmm.
Low turnout equals Trump winning the election. And I think there's a lot of signs here. I could be wrong here. Look, if people say I'm wrong, it's not going to be a front issue thing by November. We'll see how that plays out. But there's a lot of signs here to suggest that 2016 can play out all over again because of the Gaza issue. And when you look at those numbers in Michigan, some of those states, the uncommitted numbers you saw in the primary last week, for example,
right,
Tuesday, double digits too.
Right.
That is super concerning.
It is. So I would say to my friends on the left, so I think the one thing that they do have to be concerned with, there is a level of apathy in the right and center right. And I wouldn't say apathy, that's probably not the right word. I think there's enough friction with the MAGA movement of the party that it could really affect Donald Trump in November.
Mm-hmm.
The offset of that is just what a unmitigated disaster that Joe Biden has been. They can try to spin it all they want, but everybody who goes to the grocery store, everybody who goes to fill up their gas, everybody who looks at their 401k, everybody who looks at the world basically being on fire, and you have an administration who is unwilling to acknowledge what everyone else sees. Cognitive issues aside, I mean, the man cannot hold a sentence together. It's terrifying when you hear some of the things that he says and the way that he behaves to think that this is the leader of the free world. You have the world basically scoffing and laughing at us. There's no fear of the American movement, politically, financially. I mean, so the country is literally on fire. And the problem with the Biden team is that not only are they unwilling to acknowledge the pain of the American citizen, but they almost pretend like it's not happening. And then they just, I watch the press secretary at least twice a week. I watch her because, I don't drink a lot of coffee, so I need to get my blood going. So she I mean, you watch that and it's like the Ministry of Information. I mean, they just out and out lie.
They live in a silo.
It's and it's terrible. And maybe that's just the Washington bubble. You have a Washington, New York, California bubble, and then maybe they actually believe what they're saying. But when you talk to everyday Americans, when you just do the landscape, you go, okay, as bad as Donald Trump is, and as bad as a candidate as he is, and as much as he may be unlikable, and the negatives and the friction in the party and stuff like that, your one saving grace, if you're center right, is okay, what's the alternative? If he's the alternative, that's a race to the bottom, and you may just go, hey, you know what, I'll give Trump another chance instead of 4 more years of this. They would have done themselves a much better service, I think, going into this election to acknowledge with earnesty, not just in passing, because it's always backhanded. Oh yeah, we know milk is more expensive. That's why we're doing blah blah blah. Okay, but nobody believes that, right? Well, the inflation is so and so, but it's come down. Well, it's come down because it was as high as it's been in decades because you did it, right? So you like they set all these fires and then try to take credit for putting them out, and people I think are wise to that. And so instead of just acknowledging, yeah, you know what, we had a lot of things going on and, we're working on them and we understand and, this is our plan for the future. It's basically soul of the democracy, January 6th, abortion. That's it. That's if that's going to be your message going into November and you're going to ignore the everyday effects of, the financial policies. And like you said, the war, the wars overseas and the things that are going on. If you're going to ignore those and just say, okay, well, vote for him because I'm better than this guy, that's not a winning message. So so they're going to be in trouble.
No, I do think that again, all those things, casual voters don't necessarily follow politics like you and I. All they see is, well, milk's expensive, groceries expensive, this is expensive, rent's expensive. Exactly. Who's in charge? Boom. That's the problem. Boom. And I get that. I totally get that. We'll see. I think this Gaza issue is definitely could be something that can cost me an election. But again, Donald Trump has 7 months still between now and November, with 91 indictments. I mean, again, this thing can go either way in these next 7 months. And I look, do you agree that? Wait, I'm gonna ask you this. There's a lot of Republican commentators I do respect that keep bringing this up, though. That Michelle Obama could be an option for Democrats if Joe Biden decides to pivot straight right. Were you on that, Michelle Obama?
No, it would not for me. No, I'm
not even saying like vote for her. I'm saying her running in general. She has said in the past she has no interest in getting involved in politics again.
I believe that's correct. Yeah, I don't know what her. I listen. We've had The Rock. We've had Michelle Obama. We've had Oprah. I mean, like I said, what are we doing?
She's actually on betting. There's actually in Vegas betting odds. You have betting odds to win the election in 2024, and there's Trump favorite right now, obviously currently, then Biden, and then right under Biden is Michelle Obama.
Okay. It's just people with too much money that have nothing to do. I don't know. Right. I don't know.
I don't know. I can't call a winner, to be honest with you now, because there's too much things can happen between now and then. Biden could lead the race. I don't think he will, but there is precedent for this in 68 when Lyndon Johnson, 10 months for the election, March 21st, 68, said, "Well, I'm not running for nomination. I'm running for the election again." And Hubert Humphrey came in and he lost to Nixon. So there is some of that, Biden will stick it out.
It is, but I mean, like you said, your question you're asking me is from standing from right here, right now, March 13th.
You said Biden.
Just looking, yeah. I think that it's going to be close regardless. I do think that's true. But looking at it from right to center right, I'm thinking, this guy, he could win it. And now you have the RFK Jr. You've got a third party.
Will he have an effect though?
In a race this tight, I think that even 3 or 4 points could move it one way or the other. I mean, it's really that close.
And I'll say as much. If let's say hypothetically the Aaron Rodgers thing does play out, or he's VP, just interest alone might sway voters. Just on interest of frustration. Fuck these two guys. I'm gonna vote for it just because I don't want to. Just because I want to. Because I'm a fool.
Isn't there a poll? I think I saw a poll. Something like 72% of the poll said that they didn't want either. That they want somebody different.
They say that,
something like that, high 60s. But I mean, it's enough that even if you shave enough of that, I mean, that's what I'm saying. In something this is at this close, so you have all of these mitigating factors, right? You've got the hard right and the conservative right and the MAGA right. You've got them beefing. You've got the Biden team that's dysfunctional. You've got a third party candidate. You've got people who are interested in something different. There are so many different factors that. So for me, looking at it from right now, when I look at all of those things together and I say, okay, I know for a fact, I know pretty much the left will galvanize around Biden come the summer. They will galvanize because they will say, we'll take this versus the alternative all day long. When I look at the right, I see the right saying, you have the 35% who are strictly Trump people, but then you've got 50% of that party who are going to be like, yeah, you're going to have a bunch who are going to go, okay, he's our choice. We don't have a choice. What's the alternative? But there are enough people in the Republican Party or the conservative movement who are going to say he has done so much to push us away that I don't know that I can, in good conscience, give him my vote. I'll vote down ballot, and I'll believe that we can hold Congress. If we win the Senate, we keep the House. We can have fiscal sanity and order. The legislative, branch will be with some sanity, and then you know what? We roll for
and you hold the line for 4 years.
Try again.
Hold the line for 4 years. That's simple. And not only that, the Democrats have always had an inherent advantage going into these elections because of the fact that there are more registered Democrats than registered Republicans in this country. So it comes down to those little margin numbers here and there. Which Trump, to his credit, 2016 thread that needle really well.
He did. He still weighed very well. I mean, they talk about the silent majority that could very well be, again, like you said, a lot can change over the summer. I think, if we talk again in 3 months, we may have a completely different conversation.
Right, exactly. All right, let's get some wrestling talk here. 1 hour into politics. I love it. All right, before we get to AEW quick. Well, we're on AEW. Well, tell me AEW quick. Sting retired officially at Revolution 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago?
Icon. Yeah, it was just last Sunday, wasn't it?
It might have been last Sunday, Sunday before that. Your thoughts? Sting now gone officially for good. Age 64.
Yeah, can you imagine? I mean, I watch AEW every week. What he was doing at his age, and said, he is just he's a legend. He's an icon. I mean, there's no doubt about that. He's left a mark on professional wrestling that will echo for eternity. I wish him nothing but the best. I thank him for his resurrection, basically, in AEW, what Tony Khan and those guys did for him. When he came back to WWE for that brief run, it was just really, really sad because it was so exciting to see him back. And he got buried. I think he was in a feud with Triple H and then had that match at Mania, and it was really bad. And it's just like, man, you hate to see a guy like this go out like that. So for him to not only come back, but the programs that they built him in, for him to be undefeated and really just showcase that this guy still had it. It was phenomenal. It was a great run. I'm really, really happy for him to be able to go out on his terms like that.
And he was used the right way, I thought, by Tony Khan. I think for all the criticism I give Tony Khan and how he runs his company, I think the way he used Sting actually was the right way to use him as an attraction and only in tag matches. No need to do anything more than it had to be. Just him being there was enough.
I agree. Yeah, it was great. It's good for him.
Yeah, absolutely. As for AEW as a whole, I'll be honest, I've checked out on AEW for the last few months.
Okay.
I started wrestling. Well, I started wrestling a lot. I mean, wrestling as a whole, I've checked out mostly until like recently because The Rock's back in WWE. We'll tell about that in a second. But what's going on in AEW? Well, first off, tonight we saw Mercedes Moné, aka Sasha Banks, is back. Well, when I say back, she's actually in AEW now. She debuted tonight. What's the name of the show? I know it's obviously Dynamite. But what was the name of
the... they called it Big Business tonight. Right. AEW Big Business from Boston.
They titled it tonight, right?
Correct.
What's going on in AEW? What am I missing? Draw me back, Torrey. Draw me back to watch AEW again. Why should I watch AEW right now in March?
It is a viable alternative to what you would consider the mainstream promotion in the country. Absolutely viable. Listen, if you're a fan of the sport of professional wrestling, there's the entertainment value, of course. The company up north, and it's a mega million company. They have superstars that transcend, wrestling and all that. So, that's fine. It's the cream of the crop. It's the apex of the industry. If you are like me, who's grown up a fan of the sport of professional wrestling, the technical wrestling, the different styles of wrestling, AEW gives you a little bit of everything, and they do it in a way that is just an absolute feast for the eyes. These guys are tremendous workers. The matches are spectacular. The personalities are above board. And right now they have probably the deepest and most talented roster maybe in the history of professional wrestling.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. They just signed Will Ospreay. He's over from the UK. If you get a chance, find the Will Ospreay Kyle Fletcher match from the AEW Dynamite last week. It's probably one of, if not the top 3 matches I've ever seen in my life. 47 years.
Wow, that good, huh?
It was absolutely phenomenal. Will Ospreay is a star, is a bona fide star.
Oh, he's really great. He's really great.
He is phenomenal. So him signing, Okada from Japan signing with AEW. Obviously, like you said, Mercedes Moné, and then you're talking about guys who have been there for forever. Orange Cassidy, guys who wouldn't make it in New York because they're not super huge and they're not larger than life personalities. These guys give it their best. Moxley, Brian Danielson, I guess is he's there now. The roster is enormous, almost to a fault, because there's so many talented guys that there's just not enough airtime for them all. Samoa Joe is the world champion. I'm sure you're familiar with Samoa Joe. His matches are fantastic. Swerve Strickland is a guy who was an afterthought, in the NXT, and he is a bona fide main eventer. He is a superstar in the making. I mean, the guys who are at the top, even the guys who are in the mid card, are just they go out and they work, and you can tell that these guys love the sport of professional wrestling. They love their craft. They love what they do, and it translates every Wednesday, every Friday, every Saturday, and every pay-per-view. So, is it the glamour and glitz and the presentation of a WWE? Not yet. No, I would concede that. But what you don't get in that, you get in spades in the sport side of it. The technical wrestling, the presentation is, in my opinion, without rival.
They've certainly carved their own lane for that, and I think I've learned to accept that. I think what for me is that, growing up as a fan, my exposure to wrestling growing up as a kid into my teen years and whatnot was strictly WWE. And even WCW, while WCW had more work rate matches in comparison back then, I couldn't realize that even come back in 2019 watching wrestling, I will always be a sports entertainment guy first. And that's what always hooks me. I agree that the AEW, in terms of work rate matches, second to none. But that's not enough for me to sustain my eyeballs. I need the whole shebang.
Yeah,
and that's what WWE continues to grab a hold of me, is that I get a little bit of both, but I get our entertainment too on top of that also.
So I will say that they have done a really great job in the last few weeks and few months. I mean, the presentation has changed. The formats of the shows have changed. They've focused a lot on storytelling and giving guys the freedom to kind of go off on the mics and do some really interesting storylines. But they've also really stayed true to what I think sets them apart. And so, like I said, if you're a diehard, if you appreciate the sport of professional wrestling, I don't think there's a better promotion in the world than AEW. And, that's a hill I'll die on.
I'll tell you what, man, you've been diehard, entrenched in the AEW love, and
since its inception, I was thirsty for something new and something different. They checked all the boxes.
To be fair, they're the ones that brought me back. When I came back in 2019, shortly before they debuted the first Dynamite in October of 2019, when I heard that they were coming back, that's when I came back to wrestling as a whole. So WWE can thank them actually for people interested in the first place. So there's that. Have you watched any of the Rock return?
I have not. There's only so many hours in the day, and if I'm going to devote my time to sports, like WWE lost me years ago. Frankly, it just the matches were repetitive. The outcomes were pretty not predetermined, but you knew pretty much. Even when you were going into pay-per-views, there was no surprises. There was nothing to nothing really to excite your imagination. So I mean, I've been out for over a year, I would say. I mean, I catch I watched a little bit of the Royal Rumble. I thought was pretty entertaining, but you read the dirt sheets. Everybody knew who was going to win the Royal Rumble before it happened. I mean, I was kind of upset about Cody and him not finishing the story and all that. So that's kind of disappointing.
He might now. We'll see.
That's what they say. I'll probably watch WrestleMania just because you have to. It's the Super Bowl of professional wrestling, so you have to kind of watch that being a fan. But as far as the product goes, every week now, I really haven't followed it.
Well, I'll be fair to both promotions. I don't watch any of the promotions week to week anymore. What I do, I obviously use YouTube as my best way to keep one eye open on what's going on. On both
Sure.
promotions really. But I mean, The Rock being back obviously is heightened much more interest in WWE now. This now run to WrestleMania.
Sure.
Now Roman is fighting both nights now. He's fighting the tag match with Rock against Cody and Seth, and then he's fighting, of course, Cody for the title on. I'm assuming it's night 2. So that has at least kept me, my eyes and and ears into what's going on in WWE. The Rock, I tell you, and the Rock turning to heel, especially too now.
Heel Rock is the best Rock,
without question, and I'm talking about all forms, corporate, Hollywood.
Yes, I agree.
Not saying I don't like. I love babyface Rock too, but that makes the Rock as a heel even better. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what's people interested in the Rock being a heel again. It's great. It's fantastic. Good. So I mean, we'll see how that plays out. Little football talk. Well, you're wearing Chiefs hat.
Never a doubt, baby. Never a doubt.
You sure about that? Because you have some doubts going to the playoffs. I watch your tweets, bro.
Never a doubt. That was all play. No, listen. We
did pick them to win in the Super Bowl, even though I had some questions though.
It was touch and go there for a little while.
Yeah.
I'll concede that. I mean, they did not. Who am I to doubt ever again the brilliance of Andy Reid, the absolute next level, once in a generation talent that Patrick Mahomes is, Travis Kelce, those guys. I mean, they had it all figured out. We like to joke in the beginning of the year, thought, okay, they just need to get to the playoffs, and they're just. It was a little, we had some struggles there at the wide receiver position. I'm not going to say any names, but it was a little touch and go. But I mean, once this Super Bowl run, I think for Chiefs fans, is probably the most satisfying of the three, given the the sheer level of doubt from everyone. And then the run that they went on, beating the number 1 ranked defense in the AFC, the number 1 ranked defense overall, all on the road, beating the Dolphins, beating the Bills. You know what I mean? So like every single hurdle and step that was in front of them was like, okay, this is the time. This is the year to knock them off. This is the year to knock the Chiefs off. They got no true wide receiver 1. Travis Kelce's lost a step. Patrick Mahomes is throwing interceptions all over the place. The defense is great, but the offense can't figure out what it's doing. This is the year to knock them off. They're still in a rebuilding year, yada, yada, yada. And what do? They go out and make the probably the greatest postseason run ever.
Not only that, they do it where they check off more boxes now. Oh, we never seen Mahomes play on the road in the playoffs. Okay, twice. Check. Boom. Next. I'm there. I already said this. I've said this numerous times in this podcast. I'll say it again. Andy Reid officially now Rushford coach.
Absolutely.
Patrick Mahomes. I don't know where you want to rank him, but he's definitely top 3 quarterback all the time. I mean, I don't care what your order is. If your top 3 is not Montana, Brady, Mahomes, whatever order you put it in, you don't know anything about football.
Objectively, he's top 3 right now.
Yeah, I mean,
I consider him to be just obviously subjectively as a Chiefs fan, but obviously as somebody who gets into the LeBron Jordan debate all the time. I'm team LeBron.
You are.
I am team LeBron because I go strictly by the optics. Okay, I don't take numbers aside, take attitude aside, take guys out of the sport. Like, if I'm watching a guy play basketball, if he does things on a basketball court nobody's ever done, plays all 5 positions, is going to lead. He's going to be first in NBA history in points, and then like 3rd in assists in the history of the league. He has 40,000 points, right? I mean, his longevity, his commitment to excellence. I watched him drag some of those sorry Cleveland Cavalier teams to the NBA Finals by himself, teams that had no business being in the finals because he was there. That's not to discredit. And see, that's what happens. We get in this argument and they go, well, you're discrediting what Jordan did. Yeah, Jordan, 1-3, fine. Also went years where he didn't win a championship, never won a championship without Scottie Pippen, lost to the Orlando Magic, the 94 Eastern Conference semifinals when he came back, had the years with the Wizards, got a trophy for scoring 30,000 points. LeBron scores 40,000, 10,000 more points than Jordan did. I mean, that's all numbers, and anybody can debate that in championships, and I get it. When I watch that guy play basketball, regardless of what I think of him on the side or outside of the court, I go, that's the greatest basketball player I've ever seen play. And Patrick Mahomes, consequently, is the greatest quarterback I've ever seen play. He is clutch.
Certainly most talented I've ever seen.
He anybody who can throw the deep ball with such precision and accuracy, he makes the right reads. He knows when to run. He knows the defense before the defense calls itself. There is nobody. I mean, the 13 seconds in and of itself should have cemented him in the pantheon of quarterbacks. Who does that? So yeah, so for me, it's already settled. I mean, he doesn't need to win another Super Bowl for me to see that. Look, he's had the greatest 6-year run of any quarterback ever. I was thinking about it the other day. We're like he's one interception away and one offsides away from going to 6 straight Super Bowls.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, D Ford.
6 straight Super Bowls.
Thank you,
D Ford, and then the one bad pass in overtime to Tyreek Hill's last pass to Tyreek Hill that was intercepted in overtime.
That's the only.
He played that bad half.
Bengals game?
Bad half, the second half, where they lost.
That is the only game I ever blame Mahomes for. The only game in his career, I was like, Mahomes, that was bad.
But you think, that's 2, fluke things. Those don't happen. We've gone to 6 Super Bowls in a row.
Well, I've said
in his first 6 years as a starter.
I've said too. Also, he has in the 6 years as starting quarterback, he has played no worse than in the AFC title game. Do you know how hard it is to fucking do in today's NFL?
Absolutely. And done it in different ways, right? They had he had the 5,000-yard, 50-touchdown season. He had the what you would call a mediocre season. He had a team that was ball control defense. He had a rebuilding team. He had the super team. And he's the most consistent one of all of those. He is the X factor in every game. You never, ever, when the game is down 10 points, down 20 points, down 17 points, fourth quarter, 13 seconds, whatever situation he's in, you never count the guy out. He's the greatest quarterback I've ever seen. Yeah. And so I'm saying that as an NFL fan, not as a Chiefs fan. Just so happens that he plays for my team.
Yeah, there you go. So I ask you this then. We've never seen a team in the NFL three-peat before. Chiefs still pretty good, and by the way, shout out to Chris Jones getting paid. He deserves that every dollar, every cent. Because honestly, as good as Mahomes is, and Mahomes was great when he needed to be this year, that Chiefs defense is what held that team up as much as it could.
They were outstanding. They were elite, and Chiefs Kingdom had been saying that all year. They did not get the respect that they deserve. I mean, I think they only gave up 25 points one time the entire season last year. Yeah. Everything was under that. I mean. Yeah. They were so in. Spags did a great job. The front seven was fantastic. The secondary was ridiculous.
I'm a Spags guy.
Those guys were fantastic, and they're young guys. Brian Cook, Joshua Williams. I mean, Brian Edwards. They signed for agency. I mean, their back seven was fantastic. And when you put that with those linebackers, I'm sorry that Gay left and went to New Orleans. I'm sorry to see him go, but Tranquil was a fantastic pickup. Mike Dana was fantastic. Nick Bolton is great. Like you said, our front four is fantastic. I mean, the defense was deep. They're young. This is a defense we've got for another, 2 or 3 years that, we have a viable chance. I'd like to see them try to re-sign Snead. I think they franchised him. I know there's talks about I would love to see him stay. I'd love to see us get one more run with this group. Maybe pick up a wide receiver. Hollywood Brown, I think, is out there. I know they let Scantling go, which I think I told you over the summer. I'm like, he could save Clark Hunt from a burning building. They'd still let him go. We were done with him. Like, bless his heart. He played great in the playoffs, but so we need to get another guy, maybe Hunter Renfrow. I think he's out there. I don't know about Mike Williams.
Mike Williams is out there now.
He's injured all the time.
Yeah, but if he can fill a void for you guys and just be instant 6 points every time he's near the red zone, that's gonna be huge for you guys. And by the way,
we got one more run.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm also a Spags guy because 2007 Giants. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
18 yeah, that guy, he gave Brady fits in that Super Bowl. He
has 5 rings now, right?
He has 1 in New York. He didn't
get 2 in New York. He didn't get both.
No, he wasn't there in 2011.
Okay,
that was Perry Fuel. No, because you remember he got hired. He got hired off that 2007 run with the Giants as a coach of the Rams.
Okay.
So that's why he got a job after that. So no, yeah, he has 3 rings. How long's it been with you guys? You've been with you guys how long?
At least 6 years, I think 6, 7 years.
So he's been here for the entire Mahomes era?
Yeah, he was there. He's there entire
Then he
Mahomes
has
era. I
he
believe
has-
he was there the Alex Smith year, the first
he
year.
has at
I
least
think
he has
was
at least 4 rings then, at least 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good for him.
I think 3 for the Saints, for the Chiefs. Ooh, the AFC gonna be tough next year because you're gonna have surging. You know, now you have the Texans now surging now. You know, you have obviously Bengals to be healthy next year. Ravens should be better. You got Derrick Henry. Obviously Buffalo should be decent. Miami should be in the mix. There's a lot of teams. You know, I think the Steelers gonna be pretty decent with Russell Wilson if they can turn things around. But again, when you have
let me just tell you, we heard all that last year.
We did.
We heard it last year. Chiefs are rebuilding.
I won't doubt them.
Look out for the Bills. Look out for the Ravens. Everybody spent the Chargers, Justin Herbert, the Dolphins are
Jim
the
Harbaugh.
fastest we heard it all last year. Last year was the year. That's what we were saying. So last year was the year to knock us off because that was it. We were. Some people didn't even pick them to make the playoffs last year. So
that was stupid.
I
was stupid.
Doubt them.
I wouldn't go that far. No, I wouldn't put.
So as long as Reed, Mahomes, Kelsey, as long as that core is there, never picking against them again.
I won't doubt them at all. I'm a home. I love Mahomes, man. I was rooting for you guys to win. Other than the Ravens game, I was rooting for you guys the rest of the way because I wanted Lamar to win a ring. But other than that, I was rooting for you guys the rest of the way. One last thing, NFL related. Free agency. Your thoughts? Anything stood out to you?
I don't know who's playing for what team next year. I mean, it feels like every year, like we go through this, and more often than not, like guys are moving around to different teams. So it's gonna be, it's interesting. I mean, these guys deserve to get paid. I mean, I was watching the franchise, which is a series, the Chief series. It's on YouTube. I watched a little bit of that. They did the post Super Bowl, the last one of the season, dropped last night. So I was watching a little bit of it today, and so I think it was Dave Todd, it might have been the special teams coach, but he's talking about how, this is like the only job, like the NFL guys, like it's not a 9 to 5, 8 to 5 job, right? It's like their job, but it's like how many people go when they're done with their job and they cry when they didn't do a good job when they lost. Like these guys put so much of their effort and heart and emotion into what they do. Mm-hmm. Like that often gets lost. I didn't think about that. I'm like, that's true. I mean, like we all complain about how much money they make. But I mean, these guys pour their entire being into that they take losses personally. Right. I mean, they cry when they lose. They are elated when they win. It's like the passion and emotion is there. So I think I'm past the point where I'm trying to fault these guys for trying to make as much money as they can. I'm a team loyalty guy, but it's easy for me to say because, I don't play. So having said that, I'm really happy for the guys who are getting what they deserve, who are moving around. I think that's player fluidity is probably healthy for the league. I think it makes for different fan bases to have a chance to root for a winner. So I think that's good. I think I don't know if there's been like a move where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm really worried about the Chiefs' chances of repeating. I don't think there's been that move yet, but it's good for the league. It's good for the fans. It's good for the league. It's good for the product.
Well, the only one that obviously the one that impacts me is Saquon Barkley going to the Eagles. Like,
but the Eagles did have a problem. So that's an interesting pick too. And if you think about it, but like the Eagles' problem wasn't the rushing game.
Oh, I agree.
Right. I mean, DeAndre Swift was fantastic, and Gainwell was pretty good. So I mean, like they didn't really address a need with Barkley. I don't think that was something that, for me, if I'm an Eagles fan, doesn't really make much sense. Because it was their secondary and their defense that was terrible. Right.
Oh, God,
I mean, they were getting lit up at the end of last year, and all those guys. So, I mean, getting Barkley is great, but what does that do for you? Just lost Jason Kelsey. Fletcher Cox just retired. Like, is the team overall better because you traded from DeAndre Swift to Saquon Barkley? I mean, is that going to be enough to put you over the edge? I mean, it looks nice.
That might have been a fuck you to the Giants.
And maybe they're okay with that. But, if you don't address that secondary, then you're no better than you were last year. And last year was a disaster. So.
Does Derrick Henry move the needle for the Ravens, you think?
30-year-old Derrick Henry? I think so. Again, we're going back to we're having the same conversation. What was the problem with the Ravens wasn't their rushing offense, right? They're like one of the best rushing teams ever. last year with Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, and so you're upgrading. You're doing a slight upgrade, maybe in the short term for Derrick Henry, but again, that's not addressing the problem of why you lost last year. You lost last year because for all of the bells and whistles that Lamar Jackson brings to the table, you struggle with the pass in the playoffs. So I saw they're letting Odell walk. So, I mean, Zay Flowers looks like he might be a good player, but, you still need to address the receivers. They lost Patrick Queen. They lost one of their secondary guys, too, I think went to Pittsburgh as well, right? Or Denver or something like that.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? Like, I think having these big name caliber players move to different teams is cool. And especially,
it's cool in March.
Getting a fresh start. It's cool to look at, but are you addressing the problems that you had that kept you from winning the Super Bowl? I don't think anybody's made a move that really has addressed that to a point where, as a Chiefs fan, I'm like, okay, now I got to be worried. I don't think anybody's made that move yet.
And the reason they lost last, for the record, I'm not even take away from the Chiefs, but the Ravens coaching played stupid.
Oh, it did. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, we agreed. Yeah, I mean, it was a really weird game to watch. It was almost like the Ravens and the Niners in the Super Bowl. Like these coaches outsmart themselves, right? I mean, you've got McCaffrey on 3rd and whatever it was, 7, and like at the end of the game there, when McDuffie knocked that pass down, I mean, and when I'm watching that play, I'm going, they're going to hand it to McCaffrey. He's going to run 5 yards. They're going to run out the clock, kick the field goal, win the game. That's just, the guy's running 5-6 yards a carry. They're going to give him the ball. The game's over. At that point, I'm thinking, and then he passes. And as soon as he passed and the ball's knocked down, I said, we're going to win the game. They're not coming back from that. Because
I knew I was going to win the game when San Fran outplayed you guys the first half, and you're only up by 7 at halftime. Like, nope, Mahomes too close, and thank God.
Just give him the ball last. You give him the ball last, we're going to win the game 10 times out of 10.
I hate the Niners. So
he's different.
I'm happy about it. So
you're welcome.
I've always hated the Niners. Thank you. I was hating the Niners. Anyway,
that's what we do.
Sorry, great job as always, man. Plug your Twitter. Plug one unplug. Anything.
Yeah, man. Follow Torrey M. Spears on X social media. That's really where I do most of my thing at, and I really appreciate the conversation. It's good. Good touch base, man. I enjoy this, and
absolutely
hope to be on again soon.
Absolutely. Do you call it X? Do you call it Twitter?
It'll always be Twitter to me. X, it's going to always be Twitter. It's always going to be tweet. I probably said tweet like 15 times today. So
not a Zeet.
Is that what it is? I don't even know.
I don't know.
It's Threads. Is that still a thing?
It's still a thing. I rarely use it, but I use it. I use it when I remember to use it. I don't ever really, it's there. I just
follow me on Threads. Why don't you do that? Because I'll never see it.
You didn't see it on Threads then?
I have an account. I opened an account when it first started. I think I'm like, what is this? Is the same thing. I don't know. I don't need to have
I may
two
post
of the same thing.
Right. I may post it once every like 4 months.
Yeah.
Honestly. So it's
no, man. But yeah, on Twitter, on X, Torrey M. Spears. I love the conversation.
Anything. For record, this guy told anything.
Anything. Like, I mean, I just love the debate, discuss sports, politics, life, religion, whatever. The more conversation, the better. If I can be a part of that, then I appreciate that.
Yeah, you use,
and I appreciate you.
Yeah, man. And you use social media the right way. Conversation.
I don't know about all that, but
no. But I'm saying connectivity, connecting.
But that's right, exactly. That was the whole idea of it. I'm a tried true social media person.
There you go. Exactly. Good job, man.
All right, brother.